Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to take a look at customizing a view, and specifically we're going to look at collapsing columns in text mode. So often is the case you have quite a few columns from left to right presenting a lot of fields, and you start to run out of space on the screen and you start to have just too many columns of records. So what we're going to do is use the shared columns feature in text mode to collapse these columns with a little bit of embedded HTML to give us a nice format. So the first thing I'm going to do is open my report in a second tab. So I'll just take the URL, paste it, and now I have the same report open in two tabs. And the reason I do this is so that in the first tab, when I'm in the edit screen and making changes to the report, I can just simply click the apply button and flip over to the second tab, refresh, and I'll see my changes instantly without having to save and close and go back in to edit the report. So, all right, so let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the WFPro site here, and in the text mode area, there's a views section, and in views we have quite a few topics here. One of them is shared columns. In fact, it's the first topic. So in the shared column section here, we have two options. We have a basic shared column and we have a shared column with a bold label, and we're going to grab this one with a bold label. We'll just copy this text here, and we're going to grab this one because it contains some HTML that allows us to label our fields as we collapse our columns. And here's an example of it right here, where we have a reference number in bold, and then on the right we have the actual reference number. So this is how it will display in the report we're editing now. So when we go into the report, we have to first add a column, and we have to take that column all the way to the left of the column we want to start consolidating. And in this case, I want to start with this DRL column, the first column. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you might want to start collapsing columns somewhere in the middle of your view. So you can do that, but I'm going to put it all the way to the left. So once I've got my column all the way to the left, switch to text mode, paste the text that I had on my clipboard, and here what we need to do is we need to align the name here with the DRL. So instead of it saying reference number, we want it to say DRL. And the display name will be the name of the column, the overall column containing all of these fields that we're going to consolidate. So in this case, I'm going to call it DRL information. And since this is the first column, first column in the view, we actually do have the ability to control the width. So here I'd like to say use width equals true, and I'd like to say the width is going to be 300. We'll see how that works out later, but we'll just start with that. So now that we have filled this in, when we click save, you'll see that this column that we're adding or editing and the DRL column will collapse into one. And there we go. So you can see now the text mode has automatically changed, and you have two columns collapsed into one. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that change. Flip over to my second tab, refresh my data, and there we are. Now we just have one field here, so it doesn't really look like we've done a whole lot. But now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and start collapsing additional columns. So I'm going to go back and get this text from here, from my clipboard. And again, I'm going to add a column, and I'm going to put it right in between the column we just added and the new column, or the next column that we want to have in view. And so again, we switch to text mode, paste what we have. In this case, we're going to need a line break right here before this strong tag. And so I'm going to put an HTML line break in here, and what that will do is it will ensure that this next field segment function drops down to the next level. So here I'll put segment function. We actually don't need a display name here, and we don't need a width. And so before I save this, I'm going to copy this format so we can continue to reuse it. So I'll just copy this and click save. So you can now see that 2 and 3 are shared. We have our segment function in here, and we are pulling in the field that we want to pull in next to it. And so now, to collapse the first one that we built and the second one that we just built, we just click on the first one, come into text mode, and whatever column number you see right here, the highest column number, you will type column .1 share col equals true. And what that will do is it will say share column 1 with column 2, which is over here in the segment function. And click save, and now you can see we now have 0, 1, 2, and 3 shared. And by the way, columns start with 0, just as an FYI. But I'm going to click apply, and again, just come over here and refresh and see how things are looking. And that looks pretty good. So since I have that same text on my clipboard from the last change, I can just continue to do what I did before. Just repeat it. So in this case, it's for share call equals true. And I'll do one more, and then talk a little bit about undoing some of this if need be. So this one is department manager. Now, one thing I will mention here is these column headers were shortened and modified just because I was trying to make space to fit everything on screen. So instead of spelling out department manager, I put DPT manager. But now that we're consolidating and collapsing, you do have the option here to fully spell out whatever you want to spell out. So department manager can be spelled out there. And we will do column 5 share call is true, and apply, and we'll see how that looks. So great. So yeah, now we're starting to see that we have a whole lot more room over here on this right side. And by doing this, we really do expand the capability and the ability to present more information and present it in ways that kind of logically makes sense. So this is starting to look really good, and it can get better if you continue to pull more in, and you can even have multiple stacked columns to even further sort of improve the presentation of the information. Now, you probably also noticed that I'm using HTML in there to define the bold labels here for the values. And so once you recognize that you are actually using HTML, and if you know HTML, or go read a little bit about it, you can actually learn that you have control over quite a bit in there, and you can actually control colors. You can add all kinds of shapes and icons, and just sky's the limit. But I'll show you an example of that here. So let's say perhaps we wanted a horizontal roll after the segment function section. So if I wanted it after the segment function section, then I would put that horizontal roll right here before the org with it. So if I, instead of a break tag, I put an HR horizontal roll tag, then you will see that we have a line here, and we can apply that change, and we can refresh our dashboard and see that line break there. So a nice visual separation of information presented. So I think the last thing that I wanted to show you, which I think is valuable, is how do you back out of this if you need to? If you make a mistake and you're not sure what happened, but you know that you need to back out. So what I've learned when it comes to shared columns and backing out is the easiest way to back out of this shared column is to look at the text mode here and do a Control F for share call, and once you have that in here, you can see it highlights the share call rows. And what you can do is just come through here, select the rows, and delete them all. Or delete the ones that you think are causing problems for you. But by coming through here and just deleting the share call rows, you're removing the shared column function. And so when you do that and you click save, what you'll see is everything is now laid out and separated again. And so if I click apply here and go back to the demo and refresh, you will see now that everything is kind of laid out left to right. But you'll see that the columns that we built in HTML and added are in here alongside the actual columns with the field values. And so we can remove them if we need to. We can select these columns and drag them to different places. So for example, what if we wanted to move the org within up to further up in the presentation? We wanted it after DRL, and so if we move the field label, we've got to move the field value as well. But that allows us to kind of drag and drop and move fields and their values to different levels in the top to bottom hierarchy. And once we're comfortable with whatever we undid, and we want to sort of restack the columns, we can start here on the left and again just open the field and start performing the share call equals true. And I'm going to copy this so I can use it. But, so by just continuing to click in and do column 1, share call equals true, we're now just restacking everything. And we just have to keep clicking in here and doing this. And it doesn't take long to restack. I think this is the last one. So great, so now that we've restacked, I'll apply the change, refresh here, and you can now see that our hierarchy is different, I believe. I believe I may have even made a mistake in there somewhere, so I might try to dig in and take a closer look to see if maybe I didn't put something in the right place. But anyhow, yeah, it looks like department manager actually did move down, so I think department manager was maybe a little higher, not sure. But anyhow, I hope you kind of enjoyed that demo of how to use stacked columns, and reach out to me on the WFPro site or through the comments in the video if you have any questions or need any help. You can use the contact here on the WFPro site. I'll put a link for this in the video as well. All right.